Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Art lab. This is the video number 30. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been still working with securing our Windows 10 based on the recommendation of the Department of Defense and the Defense Information System Agency of the United States. Okay, this is the video concerning the securing of Windows 10. This is part number 14. I've been working now for about 13 videos or 13 videos concerning how to secure your Windows 10. Okay, so I think this will be, with God will, the last part in this series of securing Windows 10. So this is the last video. We will talk about securing your Windows 10, and then after that we will begin working on securing Windows Server and a lot of things based also on these two departments' recommendations. So let's begin from where we have last stopped. The last thing we have stopped at is to the recommendation of the Act as a part of the operating system. User right must not be assigned to any groups or accounts. Okay, here it's saying that this is a group policy. Okay, if we configure it, the user right can assume the identity of any user and gain access to resources that user is authorized to access. So acting as a part of the operating system, this is very clear. It seems that you are giving the user the right to act as the operating system or as a system user. Okay, so I think this is one of the most important and dangerous rights to give to a user. So we can see also some description about this. This is from the Microsoft. The Act as a part of the operating system, this is a part of the user right assignments group policy in the Windows setting. Okay, so this is a part of the user assignment or user right assignments. The Act as a part of the operating system determines whether a process can assume the identity of any user, so it verify the identity of the user and then give him access to the resources that he is authorized to access. Okay, so basically this is very clear. It seems that this right gives the user authorization to access system resources. Okay, I don't know especially or specifically what are these resources, but he is talking about in general, it's talking about resources to access in the system. Okay, something related to the system. He is saying that the best practice, just a moment guys. So he is saying here the best practice, if you need to have, or if you have a service that requires access to the system resources, you can configure the service to log in using the local system account. So there is a user in the Windows called system. You can configure your service account or your Active Directory service account to use the local Windows system account to work or to initialize or to start. So for example, if you have a service and you need a Windows service, you need it to be started using a user, you can do this using the system or the user internally or the Windows system local user, not to create a user on the Active Directory and give it rights to or to act as a part of the operating system. So for example, let's have an explanation. If for example, if you need to run a certain service in the Windows on one machine, so you will create a user on the Active Directory and then you will let it restart the service or start the service. Okay, here is saying if you need something like this, you should not make an Active Directory account and then give him the right to act as a part of the operating system. This is not right. You should after giving him this right, then he will access the system or he will start the service. This is not recommended. What is recommended? If you need to start a service on a machine, you can make the Windows system account or system user account to start this service, or you can create an Active Directory account and let it start the service. Okay, but not to give it this right, because this right, it is not as I said before, it will act as a part of the operating system. So this is a very critical right to give it to a user. So let's see how we can do this. So we need to disable, or we need to make sure that no user or account have this kind of rights. The only one that can act as a part of the operating system, it is the Windows system account, okay, and it's already there. It have the permissions to act as a part of the operating system. So here we don't have any users, so this is correct. This is one of the recommendations. And then here we can see that allow login locally, user right must be assigned to administrators and users group. So to log into a machine through the network, this is known, or this is, we all know that you can log into a machine through network, okay, but who is authorized to, or who is allowed to access the machine locally, this should be assigned to the administrators, or the local, or the group of local administrators group and the local users group on the machine. Okay, so this is the only two groups allowed to access locally on the machine. Okay, so we need to make sure that this right is assigned to the appropriate local groups. Okay, so we need to see if it's allowed to administrators and users. Okay, so let's go and see my default domain policy and see who is allowed to access the machine locally. I think you can add the backup operators, because this is a local group. Its members are allowed to back up the machine, so I think we can add them. Let's see user assignments, and then we open here. We can see, yes, that we have administrators, backup operators, guest and users. You can remove the guest. Okay, this is normal. We will not leave the guest to access the machine. So backup operators, this is fine, because they are, its members are responsible for backing up the PC. So this is also allowed, I think. Anyway, so this is the thing, we can just remove the guest and leave the other three groups. Okay, and guest here, it is a user, it's not a group. So here we can do this, and then we can continue working with the recommendations. The backup files and directories must only be assigned to administrators. So the backup of the machine locally. So if you need to backup your machine, any machine in the domain, not locally, if you need to backup any machine to in the domain, this should be only assigned to the local administrators group and the domain admin group. And by the way, the domain admin group is a member of every local administrators group in any machine in the domain. So this is correct. You can give the right to backup the files and directories on your machine to the local administrators groups, and you can add also the backup operators group. This is a group that is specially created to backup files, so we can add administrators and backup operators. Okay, so this is also one of the rights that you can add. Okay, so not only administrators, you can add backup operators as well. Okay, so let's go and see this right is assigned to who. So we can see that the backup operators here, this is the Active Directory group policy, and this is the local group policy of the machine. So we will check the local group policy of the machine and see if it inherited some group policies from the domain. So this is inherited from the Active Directory group policy. Okay, so here we have backup operators and we have administrators. So you have two groups. So you can configure an Active Directory group policy to override the local group policy of the machine and specify that the local administrators groups and the backup operators group are the only group members that are assigned or that are responsible for backing up files and directories. So this is also one thing to mention. Okay, and then we can continue working. Now we can see the change of the system time. So also this should be assigned. If you change the time of the system or the date of the system, this will affect the whole PC as a whole. A lot of things are dependent upon the system time. So this is very, very critical right also to give to a user. So the only one that should have the right to change the system time, it is the administrators and other two local users on the machine, something called local service and NT service. So you have two local users on every machine, okay, something called local service and NT service. These are two local users created by default when you install the Windows operating system. So the only one responsible to change the time, the system time, or is allowed to change the system time, it is the local service and NT service. So these are two Windows system users, and the administrators, this is the group that its members are local administrators on the machine. And of course the domain admin can change the system time because he is a member of the local administrators group on every machine in the domain. So we can do this. And he's saying here that this account, the NT service account, is added in version or Windows 10 version 1909 cumulative update. So I think it is not available before Windows 10 version 1909. Anyway, so we need to see who is responsible for changing the system time. Here you can see it is administrators and local service. Why I don't have NT service? Because this is, or my Windows 10 version, it is 1809. So if I have Windows 10 version 1909, we will have another user called NT service added. Okay, so anyway, so this is, we are in line with the recommendations. So let's continue working. Then create a page file. User right must be assigned to administrators group. Create a page file. This is something, it will act like a RAM. I know the page file is something acting like a RAM. Okay, this affect the performance. When you increase the page file, this will increase the performance of the PC, or if you decrease it, it will decrease the performance of the system or the PC. So let's also see a recommendation, or let's see the description of something like this. This is the Microsoft. Let's see Microsoft description. Let's say what he's saying about create a page file. So create a page file. Windows designate a section of the hard disk as a virtual memory known as the page file. So it's a virtual memory acting like a RAM. It is called pagefile.sys. It is used to supplement the computer's random access memory to improve performance of frequently used programs and data. Although the file is hidden from browsing, you can manage it using the system settings. So it's a virtual memory. It helps your physical memory. So for example, if you have a memory or a RAM of 8 gigabytes, you can assign a virtual memory. The recommendation of Microsoft is to be double the physical RAM. So if you have a physical RAM of 8, you can make virtual memory of 16. Okay, so this will increase the performance of the PC as a whole. So this is a very critical right to give it to a user. So a user can play with the virtual memory. This could affect the performance of the PC. So we need to take care who is responsible for changing the page file. So let's continue and see who is responsible. Only the administrators or the local administrators are responsible for changing the page file. So this is also one of the recommendations. Page file administrators or local administrators group. Then the create of a token object user must not be assigned to any group or accounts. He's saying that this right allows the user to create an access token. This could be used to provide elevated rights and compromise a system. Let's see how this is described in Microsoft. Where is this right? Create token object. So what is creating token object? It determines which accounts a process can use to create a token and which account it can then use to gain access to local resources when the process uses this token. When a user logs in to the local device or connects to a remote device through a network, Windows builds the user's access token. Okay, then the system examines the token to determine the level of the user privileges. When you revoke a privilege, the change is immediately recorded, but the change is not reflected to the user's access token until the next time the user logs in and connects. So this is very good thing to know. A token, it is a way the system knows what are the rights or the privileges of the user on the system. So he's saying that this right, create a token object, through it, or the one responsible or the one given this right can change the token object. This token object is used to, or it is used to by the system, or it is used by the system to verify what this user rights have on the system resources. Okay, so this is a very critical one. Okay, so he's saying when a user logs in to a local device, okay, or through the network, or connects to a remote device through the network, so you can log in locally or remotely, so then he will have an access token, okay, or a token, or something like a badge. Let's see, this badge is used by the system to know what this user have or what rights he have to access on the system. For example, what folders, what files, what services he can use or restart or he can access. So he's saying, for example, that if, for example, you after logging in to the machine, you change some of these rights of this user, this is not reflected to the token. So the token, it is the way the system knows what this user rights is. So for example, after the user logged into the machine and the token is already given to the system, and then you changed your mind and revoke a privilege or you revoke some of the rights of the user, this is not reflected to the access token. Okay, it will not be reflected unless you disconnect and reconnect or restart and connect again. It's not reflected. Okay, so this is one of the dangerous rights to give to a user. So if you give this user a right to create a token object, then you can give any user any rights to any system resources. So this is one of the important things, and I think it's only to be allowed to administrators, but here he's saying that it should not be allowed to anyone. Okay, so let's see what he's talking about here. It should be blank. So let's see what this right is assigned to. Here we can create a token object. This is blank, so no one is allowed, even the administrator. Create global object, user rights must be assigned to administrators, service, local service, and network service. So service, local service, network service, this is our local users, okay, on the Windows operating system, or any Windows 10 or Windows Server operating system has these three local users created by default: service, local service, and network service. So what are create global objects? Let's see also the description of this one. Create global objects. The policy determines why the users can create global objects that are available to all sessions. Okay, a global object is an object that is created to be used by a number of processes or threads, even those not started within the user session. Remote desktop services use global objects in each process to facilitate connections and access. So he is saying that a global object, it is used by a number of processes and threads. So I think it's something like the access token or the token. Okay, he say that it determines whether you can create global objects that are available to all sessions. Users can still create objects that are specific to their own session if they do not have this user right. Anyway, I think it's related to global object is related to the access rights, so something related to rights. Okay, anyway, so all we need to know that this should not be granted only, it should be granted only to administrators and what we have been talking about, these users. Okay, so let's continue. I didn't understand this one quite well anyway. So this is by default, by the way. So you will see all of these are created by default, so you don't need to change it. This is mostly what all group policies are created by default, so this is the one. Okay, then create permanent shared objects. Users must not be assigned to any groups or accounts. This is, I think, inappropriate. Granting of user rights can provide system anyway. So create permanent shared objects. So what we mean by permanent shared object, we all know that we can share an object, but what we mean by permanent share, let's see also what Microsoft says about this this group policy. The user determines which accounts can be used by processes to create an Active Directory object by using the object manager. Okay, create an Active Directory object. That means that you can create a user, a group, or a computer, okay, on the Active Directory. Directory objects include Active Directory objects, files and folders, printers, registry keys, processes, and threads. And this also includes users and groups and so. Users who have this capability can create permanent shared objects, including devices, CM4s, and mutex. This user right is useful to kernel mode components that extend the object namespace, because components that are running in kernel mode inherently have the user right assigned to them. It's not necessary to specifically assign it. So I think here he's talking about creating objects in the Active Directory. Okay, he's saying creating permanent shared objects, or he's focusing on creating objects in the Active Directory. So I think this also should not be assigned to anyone. I think it should be assigned to the domain admins or something. So let's see what it should be assigned to. I think here is saying that it should not be assigned to any groups or accounts. So this is very strange. Will not be assigned to even the administrators. Okay, so maybe this is also one of the best practices, not to share it or to give anyone this right. So just a moment. And then we have the other right to creating symbolic links. This is also another thing. Is saying that symbolic links, these are links that points to objects, to other objects. Okay, so it's not an object, it is a shortcut to an object. So let's see also what this thing or this group policy is described by Microsoft. Let's see, create symbolic links. The user determines if a user can create a symbolic link from the device that they are logged into. A symbolic link is a file system object that points to another file system object. So for example, if you have a shortcut to point to another thing, it's like a shortcut. Okay, this object points what is called target. Symbolic links are transparent to users. These links appear as normal files or directories, and they can be acted upon by the user or application in exactly the same manner. So for example, if you need, let's say this very clear example. If for example you need the system to access a location, okay, that is remotely, okay, for example, if you need it, for example, to access something in another place, okay, but it is like it is there. It's something like, guys, like a shortcut. In very special terms, it's like a shortcut. So also this is a very important one, or very important right, not to give it to anyone. Okay, so this is not a shortcut to a folder, but a shortcut to a system or a file system objects. This is very, very critical. Okay, so it's simply creating shortcuts. Okay, so this is also should not be assigned to anyone. Okay, it should be given to trusted users. Okay, so this also should be given to trusted users. He can say that I think will give it to maybe the administrators or something. Yes, it is given to administrators. Creating symbolic links. So this is one of the good things to know, to give it to administrators only. And then we will continue working with the other things. Debug programs. This is also an option that a user can debug any process, or debug here means like troubleshooting. This is a user right to debug programs. Okay, to bugger any process or to the kernel, providing complete access to sensitive and critical operating system components. So this right is given to users to debug or to troubleshoot a program. So this will give them complete access to sensitive and critical operating system components. This should be also given to the administrators at the default. So if we go also and see this right, what we mean by debug programs. So the debug programs defines who user can attach or open any process, even a process they do not own. So here he need to open a process or to open something to troubleshoot it. Developers who are debugging their own applications do not need this right. Okay, developers who are debugging new system components of the system of the Windows, for example, he is saying that if the developers have their own application, they don't have to take this right to debug their program, okay, the one that they have owned or they have created, but this should be given to them if you need to debug something in the Windows itself. New system components need this right. Okay, new system components. The user right provide access to sensitive and critical operating system components. So here they're talking about developers that need to debug something in the system, okay, in the programs of the operating system or the operating system itself. So this also should be given to the administrators. Very, very critical and very, very logic to give it to administrators only. Okay, so this is also one of the things. Then we can continue working and see the other recommendations. Debug. Okay, so this is one, debug programs, and then we need to have the right to deny access to this computer from network. User right on workstation must be configured to prevent access from highly privileged domain accounts and local accounts on domain system and unauthenticated access on all systems. So we remember we have a video talking about we have make the Active Directory as levels. So here let me show you all or let me remember you or give you a brief about what we have been talking about. Remember the red alert structure. Let me show you all. So remember this graph, I have talked it about before. Here we know this is our Active Directory, and then we have our top level. These are the we have branches. So this is the top level branch, or this is the main office level, and then we have the Russian branch, and we have the American branch, and we have the Japanese branch. All this is the command center of the army, and then we have the Russian army, and then the American army, and then the Japanese army. Here we have divided this Active Directory to tiers. We have tier 0, this is the high level, this is the high level of the Active Directory, and then we have tier 3 and tier 1 and tier 2. These are sub tiers or low level tiers or the less important tiers. Here we have done before in a group policy that we need to deny access of the domain admins and the top level administrators, deny access for them to the branches or to the computers in the low branches. So for example, admins in tier 1 will not be able to access computers in tier 3 or tier 1 or tier 2. Okay, so this is a little bit strange. Why we need, for example, to block domain admins? This is tier 1 or sorry, this is tier 0 or the most or the highest level admins in the domain. Why we need to block them or deny them access to computers in branches? Why? Because this will or this could compromise or this could expose their password for hacking. For example, if you are a domain admin and you accessed a PC here in the Russian branch, for example, if a hacker tried to hack one of the computers in the Russian branch, he will know your domain admin account and he can access all of the other PCs in the branches and in your main office as well. So what if I am a domain admin and I need to access one of the computers in the other branches? Simply you will go to your Active Directory and go to this OU, okay, in the Russian branch and create a user account that you use to access the computers in the branch. So you will access the computers in the branch in indirect way. You will go and create a user in the Russian branch or the Russian OU, especially in the IT OU. So now you will be a member of the IT or the Russian IT, and then you can access this account, or with this account you will access the computers in the Russian branch. So this is the thing, we need to block all of the tier 0 admins, especially what we mean by tier 0. Tier 0 here we mean the domain admins, the enterprise admins, the schema admins. All of these are blocked from accessing any PC in any tier. Only they can access computers in their tier. Okay, so there is computers in tier 0. Okay, so this is the thing. This is for the domain admins and the enterprise admins and the schema admins. Also, we need to have something here. The Russian IT should not have access to computers in the American branch or in the Japanese branch. They can only access their computers in their tier, and the same applies to the other branches or the other tiers. So every IT will access his own PCs in his own branch. Okay, so we will limit only everyone to access his PCs in his branch. Okay, and also we will limit the domain admins and the enterprise admins and the schema admins only to access their PCs in their tier, and not to access any other PC in any other tier or any other branch. Let's have a quick look here. So here we can see this is more clear. So this is the domain admins. We have global IT. This is the global IT group, and then we have other groups. We have talked about IT global admin workstations and IT global POW users, and we have talked about IT global POW admins. We have talked about every one of these groups, but simply what we are talking about here, we need to separate every IT in every tier from the other tiers. Okay, so this is one of the things, and what we are talking about here, this is it, not to grant high privilege domain accounts. He is talking about the domain admins and the enterprise admins, okay, and local accounts on domain systems and unauthenticated access to all systems. So here he's talking in brief, he's talking about blocking access of high privilege accounts, okay, to be accessed in on PCs, on tiers. Okay, let's, for example, also let me show you all something here I forgot to say. So for example here, if we open this graph again, let me show you all here. So here what we will do here, first I will make a group policy, okay, and put it on tier 1. I tell him please block domain admins and enterprise admins and schema admins to access PCs in the American branch. Okay, this will be a group policy that will be applied to the American branch, and then I need to go to the Japanese branch and create another group policy telling him please block the domain admins, the enterprise admins, the schema admins, and the IT in the branch of the American Army to access my PCs. So it's cumulative. We will take these admins and the admins of the branch that we are talking about and put it on a group policy in the Japanese Army, and then we go to the Russian Army. Will put a group policy telling him please block the domain admins and the enterprise admins and the schema admins and the IT in the American branch and the IT in the Japanese branch to access PCs in the Russian branch. So here we have a cumulative rights, okay, or cumulative group policies. So we need here to separate every IT only to access his PCs in his tier or in his OU. Okay, so this is what we are talking about, to separate every IT. So let's continue working and let's see what are these users that he's talking about. So he's talking about limiting or deny access to this computer from the network, and by the way we have this done already. So let me show you all something here. For example, let me show you one of the group policies that we have configured previously in the lab. We have already discussed this before, but let me revise it with you all. If you go to the collections and then we go to the red alert, okay, and then we need to go to the group policies, we have already total inventory, and then we go to the Active Directory and we go to the GPO reports. Let's see, we have something called I think one of them is to harden, not to harden. Let me show you all something here. Windows Update. I think I have something called domain security. I think no, there is one called POW. I remember it's called POW group policy. Anyway, I'll show you in the video, but we have a group policy already. We name it POW, okay, and we have in it, or we also not POW, it's something called or we have a group policy. Just a moment here, guys. Here I have a group policy on the Russian army, and they have a group policy on the Ally army, and they have a group policy on the Japanese army. Every one of these group policies, we have stated in them this group policy to deny access this computer from network. Okay, so for example, in the American army, I have deny access to all of their computers from network to the groups of the enterprise admins, the schema admins, and the IT of the global branch. Okay, anyway, so I will show you all when it comes what this group policy. I have already discussed this. Please refer to my video. I will put it in the description section. It's called meditating credential theft. I have it in 2 parts. I will put it in the description section. Anyway, so we will deny login access to the enterprise admins, the domain admins. Here we can see he is saying we need to deny access to enterprise admins, domain admins, and local accounts. Local accounts here, I think he is saying about something like the guest group. Okay, so the guest is known not to be a good user. She should be removed from, so a guest account should not be able to access the machine locally. And we know the POW, we have already created a POW workstation, and we all know that we have also restrict the POW access, okay, to a certain group. We have done this before. Okay, we have done this before in another video. We have created groups for the POW, so there is users that are specially, or they are assigned access to the privileged access workstation. So this is another thing. We need also to restrict access to POW to certain groups. We have done this before, okay, in other video. And also the POW should not be accessed by the enterprise admins. Okay, so here is saying that the POW are exempted from denying the enterprise admin and domain admin. He's saying dedicated to are exempt. He's saying that the enterprise admins and domain admins can access the privileged access workstation. Anyway, I think he see the privileged access workstation for POW. See the Windows privileged access workstation STIG for POW requirements. I think we can see this later. Anyway, so saying that the enterprise admins and domain admins can access the POW. Refer to my POW video to know who is responsible or who is the one authorized to access the POW. We have defined this before. Anyway, so he is talking about denying access to top level accounts. Okay, top level accounts like enterprise admins and domain admins should not have access to PCs in your network. Okay, if you need to access a PC in a network to troubleshoot it, you can create an account and give it very limited rights to access. Here we can see that denies access from network. This is the guest. Okay, this is the local one. We need the guests, and we need to add enterprise admins and domain admins. I think I said before, I have already done it in previous videos to restrict access or to separate or to make the Active Directory as tiers. We have done this before, so I think we should revise it. Okay, anyway, all of this we have done it before. I will show you all. Deny login as batch. Okay, this is something also, all of this we have done it before. Remember, deny login as batch, we have done this right before also. This is an account that is used to access a machine and run something like a job or something. We have done this before actually. Remember guys, all of this we have discussed before in videos concerning the mediate of credential theft. We have done this before, okay? And deny login as service. You can use an account to run a service in the Windows, okay? So this is also should be denied. All of these rights should be denied to top level groups in the Active Directory, especially the enterprise admins and the domain admins and the schema admins, okay? We have done this before. Remember guys, we have done this before a long time. And also remote desktop. So also users or top level groups in the Active Directory or top level users in the Active Directory should not be allowed to access remotely machines using the remote desktop management, okay? So we have done this before, and I will show you all. If you have 1 minute, I will show you, okay, all of these that we have created before. So for example, let me show you all. If you remember the ally group, for example, or the ally GPO, remember this one. I will show you one of the group policies that we have configured. So let me show you all here. So if we go to the not the POW security, I will show you all. For example, the ally, remember the ally group policy that we have configured before. Remember this. If we go and open the Windows setting, okay, remember this one, the Windows setting, and then the security setting, and then the local policies, and then user assignments. Okay, remember this one. Yes, user, no, not security, user assignments or user right assignments. Here we can see, remember this one, we have configured this before. Here we can see that for the ally, remember this is for, or this group policy applies to the branch of the ally, this one. So here we can see that, for example, we had said him deny access all of the computers in the ally branch. Deny access to who? DNS admins, domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, and the IT members of the global office or the main branch office. Okay, so we have done this for them. And server operators, we have discussed what are server operators, printer operators, backup operators, account operators. We have done this before, okay, so I'm just revising it. And remember also deny as batch, we have done this also before. So deny as login batch and service and locally and remotely, we have done this before. So all of these groups are denied these access, okay, to, or deny these rights to access, okay. So we have done this before. Enable the computer and user accounts to be trusted for delegation must not be assigned to any groups or accounts. So he's saying that enable computer and users to be trusted for delegation. User right allows the trusted for delegation setting to be changed. This could potentially allow an authorized user to impersonate other. Trust for delegations, you know that you can in the Active Directory delegate some of your rights to other users. So here this should not be as an admin, of course. This should not be assigned to anyone except the domain admins or the local administrators. So this is also one of the things we need to take care. Here this should be assigned I think to administrator. He's saying enable computer and user accounts to be trusted for delegation. I think this should be assigned to admins anyway. So he's saying that it needed to be blank. Okay, so this is also one of the things, trusted for delegation. So let's see here if we have it done for any group. Here you see trust for delegation. Okay, here you can see enable computers. Okay, this one could affect performance. So let's see here. First of all, let's have a look on this right. Trust for delegation. Okay, where is it? Enable account and user to be trusted for delegation. Okay, here we can see that this policy, the user can set the trusted for delegation setting on a user or computer object. Security account delegation provides the ability to connect to multiple servers, and each server change retains the authentication credentials of the original client. Delegation authentication is a capability that the client and the server applications use when they have multiple tiers. It allows public-facing services to use client credentials to authenticate to an application or database service. For this configuration to be possible, the client and server must run under accounts that are trusted for delegation. Anyway, so it's saying that you can trust your rights to other users. Okay, this is one thing we need to take into consideration. What is remember we have discussed before what is login and batch and login as service. We have discussed this before in other videos. So this what we mean by delegation. The force shutdown for remote system user right must be assigned to administrators group. So you can force a shutdown to a machine that you are connected to remotely. This can be done, but it should be done only by the local administrators or the domain admins. This also should be assigned to them. Okay, so these are all rights, very important rights, not to be given to anyone. Okay, especially to some groups or some users. So force remote shutdown, these are for local administrators. Okay, and then impersonate a client after authentication must be assigned to administrators, service, local service, and network service. The last three users are local users and the administrators are a group. This is the local administrators group. Anyway, impersonate a client here means that you can run a certain service under a different user. This way mean an impersonate a client. Impersonate a client, which means that you can log into a machine with a user and then run a service on this machine. So for example, you have a machine and then you log in to it with an account, and then you need to run a service on this machine using another account. So this is impersonate a client. Okay, he's saying that you can run on behalf a user account to run on their behalf, allow a program to impersonate another user or account to run on their behalf. This also should not be given to anyone. Okay, it should be only given to administrators, service, local service, and network service. By the way, there is some services or some programs you need this right to be assigned to them. Some programs will not run unless you have impersonate a client option activated. You need to take care because this sometimes can be used. So this also depends upon your environment, but this is a critical right to be given. For example, if you are working with MBAM or Microsoft BitLocker administration management tool, it uses this right. Okay, so you need to take care who is given this right. So it is given to administrators, service, local service, and network service. You need to take care and see. So we need to go and see this one, impersonate a client. Here, this is all by default. I didn't change anything, so this is correct. Now we can continue. The load and unload of device drivers, user right must be assigned to administrators group. So this is related to devices and their drivers also, who is allowed to load device drivers or unload or remove or install. I think this should be dynamically loaded on a system, drivers to dynamically be loaded on a system by user, so the user can download or load drivers or install drivers and uninstall drivers. This also should be given to the administrators. Okay, unload or unload device drivers, allow device drivers to dynamically be loaded on a system by a user. Okay, so this could be potentially used to install malicious code by an attacker. Anyway, so we need to also to assign this to administrators. Okay, so we can go and put it to administrators. So this should be fine. We have it for administrators actually. Yes, so this is it. We can continue working. The lock page in memory user right must be not assigned to any group. Okay, this allows physical memory to be assigned to processes which could cause performance issues or a DOS or deny of access or deny of service attack. What you mean by locking here means that you take a part of the memory and assign it to a certain program or a certain process in the system. This also should not be done by a user. This should be done automatically by the system. Okay, so you should not grant this right to any group or account. So also this should be this is logically actually. So we need to see this should be left blank, lock pages in the memory. So this is also one of the things we need to not give it to any user, even the administrators. So we can do this, and then the manage auditing and security logs must be assigned to administrators. So these are the logs. We all know that the logs are very important, especially the security logs that record everything concerning the user activity, the group's activity, and everything. So the security logs and the auditing log, managing, first of all, reading these logs and managing them should not be assigned to any group unless it is the administrator. Any user is not authorized to manage these logs or to see them or to read them. Only the administrators should have this right. So this is also normal. We need to assign it only to the administrators. Or the local administrators on the machine. So we need to go and assign it also to the administrators. Okay, this is it. And then we can continue. The modify firmware environment values user right must be assigned to administrators. Here is saying that the user can change hardware configuration environment variables. This could result in hardware failure or deny of service attack. So what are the hardware configuration environment variables? This I can show you all. We can get it from here. Right click and then properties, and then we can go to advanced setting, and then we can go to here, this one. No, I don't think this one. Anyway, so we can go to here, okay, and then advanced. I think maybe change, maybe no, not this one. There is something related to the environment setting here, environment variables. This is the one. Okay, so here we can see these are variables, okay, concerning the hardware. Okay, so some of them are including the path and some other things. Anyway, so I think he's talking about these environment and variables. Okay, so anyway, in very short description, he means that the user should not be given access to modify the hardware or the firmware of the machine. Modify firmware environment variables. Okay, these are the variables, or these are the setting of the machine, the hardware setting of the machine. It is listed in the system. You should not play with the hardware environment variables in your operating system. This also should be done to the administrators. So let's see what we mean by modify. Let's have a quick look on the description. Modify environment firmware. So let's see this here. The setting determines who user can modify firmware environments. Firmware values are the settings stored in non-volatile RAM. Anyway, the firmware can be modified by assigning this user is the last good configuration mode setting, which should be modified by the system. When Itanium based boot information is stored in non-volatile, user must be assigned the right to run boot. The exact best practices. Anyway, so I think it's related to the firmware of the machine. So this is something related to the hardware. Okay, and the listing of the values of the hardware to the operating system. Okay, so this should only be assigned to the administrators. Okay, this is done by default, so I didn't change any of these settings. These are done by default. The perform volume maintenance, okay, must be assigned to administrator. Volume maintenance here we mean configuring your hard disks, managing your hard disks, defragging your hard disks, anything related to maintenance of the hard disk, something related, for example, to compress your hard disk. All of these are operations to be done to your volume or your disk configuration. Okay, so this also should be done by the administrators. Okay, because he could delete, for example, I can delete a volume. If I have this right, I can delete a volume or create a volume. Okay, or add a new hard disk and delete a hard disk. So all of these are done by this right. Okay, the perform volume maintenance, so this should be assigned to administrators as well. So I think we are reaching the end, guys. So I think we have another one or two recommendations. The profile single process user right must be assigned to administrators group. He is saying that a user right can monitor non-system processes performance. An attacker could potentially use this to identify process to attack. So here you give the user the right to monitor your non-system processes. Okay, so maybe processes related to applications or other software. So here also this should be assigned to administrators. Okay, so profile single process user right can monitor non-system processes performance. An attacker would potentially use this to identify processes to attack. So this is also one of the things also should be assigned to administrators. So I think this is also a good or a best practice. So yes, profile, and then I think we will continue. We have restore files and directories should be assigned to administrators. So you can assign the right to restore files and directories from backup data. So you back up to your machine and you need to restore the backup of these files. Okay, so for example, you go to a machine and back up some files and then you need to restore them. This should be assigned to the administrators or local administrators, and also this could be assigned to the backup operators. So the backup operator can backup and restore. Okay, so this also should be logically to assign it to administrators, so the administrators can backup and restore files and the backup operators group can backup and restore files. So if we go there to restore, you can see that's administrators and backup operators. So I am right here. So we can continue working. The take ownership of the files, okay, must be assigned to administrators group. Take ownership of that user right that can take ownership of objects and make changes. What does it mean by ownership? For example, if a user created a folder or created a file, he is the owner of this file, so he can do anything to it. He can delete it, he can edit it, he can do whatever he like. You, an administrator, can change this ownership, so you can remove. So if a user created a file, so he's the owner, you can remove this ownership and you can be the owner of the file. So the original owner could, after that, could not change the file or make anything on it. So for example, if I am Karim, I have created a file, Excel sheet, so I am the owner of this file. Ahmed, the administrator, can remove me from the ownership or can take the ownership, and now he is the owner of the file. Me as Karim cannot do anything to the file anymore after changing the ownership. So this is also should be done to the administrators. Why we need such right? Sometimes some users leave the environment and they have still some files that they have their ownership on it, so I need to transfer the ownership so I can do everything with the file, change it, delete it, whatsoever. So this is one of the things we need also to do. So we need to go and continue. See, take ownership of files and other objects. This also should be one of the things. Files, and so this is the end, guys, of the recommendations of Windows 10. And with God will, the upcoming video will begin working with the Windows Server. Okay, so hope this video was informative for you all, and I'd like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much. Let's close this video as a whole and we shut down the machine. And let me, before that, give you a look on take the ownership. The last one we can see here, we can take ownership of a secureable object in the device, including Active Directory objects, NTFS files, files and folders, printers, registry keys, services, processes, and threads. So every one of these objects you can take the ownership of them. Okay, so this is a very critical one. Thank you so much. Until we meet, goodbye.